Why don't we start?
Sounds good.
Jamie Bakos, you are the president of Titan Clean Energy Projects. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me on. Nice to talk to you.
To start from the top, what is Titan Clean Energy Projects?
Well, Titan is, we're a clean technology company. We're about 20 people based in Saskatchewan. We have a 20-acre facility, and we're not a recycler per se. We actually convert or repurpose wood waste and agricultural residues such as flax or hemp that might be burned on a field because there's no food value, and we convert that material into pure carbon, a very high purity, high carbon material that has many uses. And we also recover a biofuel that we use for our own heat as well as electricity production. So we're off grid. We convert the waste biomass materials as they are into pure carbon, and we generate the fuel for our own needs.
When you guys make carbon, what kind of products would you produce that into after that?
Well, carbon is an amazing substance. There's actually literally dozens of uses of carbon. We're all made of carbon. There's petroleum hydrocarbons. Carbon is everywhere. A lot of companies in this space, the carbon or biocarbon is often called biochar, and it's used as a soil amendment to add to agriculture to help retain moisture and nutrients and add surface area for microorganisms. So we've worked in that market. We have a product called Mayan Gold. We also it's used in Europe as an animal feed additive. It actually really helps the gut health of dairy cows and helps improve milk production and whatnot. But primarily we focus on two markets. One is activated carbon. So it's a large market. So we further refine the carbon that we produce to enhance the surface area through a steaming process. And that's used for water purification and air pollution and odor control. So it's a very large market for activated carbon, especially from environmentally friendly sources. Instead of coal is the biggest source of activated carbon. So we use recycled wood and agricultural residues. And then in the last few years, we've actually developed a bioplastic and a carbon concentrate for plastics that can replace carbon black, which is made from fossil fuel and is very carbon intensive, and it's used in many plastics and tires, for example. Mm-hmm. So we have a strong market in the plastics and bioplastic sector. So activated carbon and bioplastics are our major focus for the carbon.
That's cool. Would you say one component makes up the majority of the business?
It's the activated carbon market is well established. It's more than $5 billion. It's a wide market across North America, Europe, Asia. So that is that's our number one. The bioplastics and plastics additive market is fairly new to us. There's still a lot of research and development, so there's some work to do yet, but we are beginning to sell into the plastic market already. And we just installed a compounding line, and we have the capacity to manufacture 1,200 pounds per hour, which is how plastics are typically described instead of kilograms. So we have a compounding line that produces bioplastics for the marketplace right now.
Did you spot a market opportunity when you started the business, or are you passionate about this sort of business, or how did it start?
Well, really, it's about a number of things. It's about diverting as much. We saw so much biomass waste from construction projects, and literally in the fall, it looks like some sort of war zone with all the the smoke plumes coming from the burning, flax and hemp. So we wanted to, use the technology it ultimately captures carbon from the atmosphere. And, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. So now we have all this carbon, this wonderful carbon. What do we do with it? And so we did look at all kinds of market opportunities. And initially, again, the soil enhancer, but we quickly realized there really wasn't much of a market for that. Like, Trevor, have you gone to a farm and garden store recently and couldn't wait to find the biochar on the shelf to help your plants grow? There was really no market. It might have been the hundreds of thousands of dollars at the time, across North America. So we first and foremost, we want to divert waste from landfill and unnecessary burning. We want to capture that carbon. And then, ultimately have to have markets if you're going to have a business, And we initially looked at the soil enhancers, some personal care products, animal feed additives. But we've really settled in on, activated carbon and bioplastics as really, really large markets that really can take a lot of carbon and help us sequester that carbon from the atmosphere.
When you're collecting stuff from the landfill and whatnot, is there a particular source of carbon that you prefer, or is there something that is out there in abundance that you collect? What sort of product do you look for to collect to reproduce?
Well, biomass and waste wood and waste ag fiber is pretty much the same. It's carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. The only difference between that and, petroleum products is they don't have the oxygen component. So, the material is all the same. There's a little bit more ash in agricultural material than there is, say, wood. The waste management companies, Green for Life and Loros and Waste Management and Super Save, they bring the material to us as an alternative to taking it to the landfill. We charge a fee that's less than the landfill so that they can bring it to us so that we can repurpose it and ultimately turn it into a value-added product instead of just decaying and degrading in the landfill. We also process treated wood, rail ties, power pools. Our technology is highly adaptable to handle contaminants such as creosote and other chemicals.
In terms of a facility and a footprint, was it a big investment to set up your machines and your shop and all the technology needed to reprocess the products?
Well, yeah, it's a huge, I was just on a call earlier today. I just realized that it was actually 14 years ago today, February 15, 2008, that two angel investors came in on the business plan, and ultimately Titan was born. I was the first employee that day, 14 years ago. We started off with a meager, less than $1 million to start up Titan. What we did was we I think I was living in Calgary at the time. So we decided to start in small town Saskatchewan, who kind of recruited us. And we were able to acquire 50 acres of land. There was a former fertilizer, a Cargill plant. So there was an office building and a Quonset. So we were actually able to start up a business with 50 acres of commercial property for $65,000 in total to begin that operation. So now we then, of course, because we're doing clean tech and we have some pretty bright people behind us, we were able to leverage quite a bit of grant capital. Was just before the financial crisis of 2008. So we were lucky enough, the Royal Bank kind of backed us for $500,000 for equipment by some strange odyssey that I'll never understand because it will probably never happen again. for companies today, anyway, in that situation. So we had over $1 million, and we decided, we've got to figure out a way to make money, because with the financial crash, it's going to be really difficult to raise capital and do some of the things we want to do, which are really research and development oriented. So over the years, we've managed to acquire over $6 million in grant funding, for example, non-dilutive capital. We've been able to get the banks to back equipment leasing and purchases, and all the things that you can do with SR and ED and the different ways to finance a business. So many millions of dollars have gone into the business, absolutely, over the years, and I think I feel like it's been a really long, patient process where we've really established, all the equipment that we need, and perfected the technology and the business model, and we're really, ready for, I think, explosive growth going forward. So really exciting times.
Titan would be an example of a business that is looking to give back to the environment, but also make a profit, sort of the eco-capitalism style theme, along the lines of Rundle Eco-Services. Shout out to Mike Rutherford at Rundle. I think that's what you guys are after.
Yeah, a shout out to Mike. I think we're kindred spirits on eco-capitalism, absolutely. I'm not, you'd say, an environmentalist per se. I'm not that worried if I have meat and it has a high carbon footprint. I do fly and I travel. If I put the can in the wrong container, sometimes I don't lose a lot of sleep over it. If we're going to do good things for the environment, there has to be money to be made. That's what makes the world go around, and there has to be margins. And we're out to validate that. When I graduated in environmental engineering, I really pursued the profession. Not necessarily, focusing on, making, cleaning up the planet, but, I felt there'd be good job opportunities because, there's a lot of problems that need to be fixed with air quality and water quality and the pollution that we have in front of us. So, yeah, absolutely. The more, the more that we could show the profitability and the value proposition about the work that we're doing, the more investment there's going to be, and the better things are going to get. Our goal is, we want to divert as much waste from landfills, but in that process, we actually capture carbon from the atmosphere. So we are a carbon sequestration company, and the fact that we bring a net amount of carbon out of the atmosphere. In fact, it's one of the most not only cost-effective way, but it's a profitable way to remove carbon from the atmosphere in the fight against climate change. So we have a mission by 2023 at some point. We want to validate that we have north of 70% gross profit margins on the work that we're doing, and that can only bring a lot of investment. We can replicate our business model all over the world with our proprietary technology and using the waste streams to generate valuable carbon products that are removed from the atmosphere. So we're on a mission to validate that the profit that can be made from doing good things for the environment.
What Titan is doing is really cool, but a critic might say the company's at a venture stage right now and profit may be limited or hard to attain. How has it been to become profitable as a company?
Well, we've been profitable pretty much since day one. We have, we haven't always been greatly profitable, but we do whatever we can make enough money. We had some great years in 2014, 15, 16, I think 17. We were supplying a lot of products in the oil and gas industry. We're making some pretty good money, and but what we invest pretty much everything back into R&D and to growing our operation and building out this facility. So we aren't. We're on a mission to validate this business model where many have been skeptical, and some have failed. Of course, it is a challenging business when you're dealing with waste and variability and market cycles and high costs of commodities and oil and gas. So there's a lot of moving parts and it is challenging, but it's the team that we have just an amazing team that's been able to battle through a lot of adversity, and we've had to pivot many times, change products, but I think what we've been able to do due to COVID is really focus on a couple of markets, the plastics as well as the activated carbon, and validate this business model. So, I know we're maybe one of the few, there's many good examples now of companies that are taking waste materials and converting that. It's really about understanding the equipment that's needed, maybe some trial and error, figuring things out. We made a lot of mistakes, but we've been able to battle through it with good people, and ultimately we're on the cusp of validating that really good profitability in the business of removing carbon from the atmosphere and diverting waste from landfills.
I spent a lot of money on information and technology and building out your facilities and whatnot. Is the technology proprietary? Are you guys worried about someone coming along and stealing your ideas and replicating it, or a competitor in the industry coming along?
Well, there's actually many companies working with pyrolysis technology. It's called slow pyrolysis. The technology itself has been around for probably 3,000 years or longer. So the Egyptians used it to generate chemicals in their society. Ancient Africans and Amazonians made charcoal for agriculture and medical applications. So the technology is, you take biomass, you add plenty of heat, but no oxygen, and you basically drive off all that hydrogen, you drive off the oxygen, and you end up with pure carbon. And there's a condensate, which comes back as kind of like a crude oil that we refine for our own biofuel. So the technology is not new. However, it is our own proprietary technology. We've perfected this technology to really process waste biomass. There is a lot of challenges with the technology. I mean, you produce this condensate that plugs up everything and gums up everything. You have feeding problems. How do you do it with augers, conveyors, with rotary drums? So it's we were able to fight through that with really good people in order to figure out these challenges. And it's going to take most companies down, in a lot of cases, because it's not so much a lot of our IP is really around trade secrets and know-how and understanding. So I'm not really worried. I mean, there's hundreds of companies using the technology. I hope there's more. Basically the technology is hands down the best way to remove carbon from the atmosphere. It's the most not only the cost effective, but profitable way, as I was mentioning. So we need more of this technology, and it's used around the world. But having the knowledge and the understanding of how to do it, what the pitfalls are, designing around solutions, bringing in our own processes that can make the technology consistent, effective, and quality. A quality product. It's pretty challenging, and so I'm not worried. But I do hope more pyrolysis companies come online, because it's a great technology to sequester carbon, and it's totally the best way to go.
It sequesters carbon from the atmosphere because it collects waste from landfills and whatnot and repurposes it so that companies don't have to use virgin materials. Is that how it's sequestered from the atmosphere?
Yeah, well, it's about the carbon cycle. So with the amount of what's happening, climate change is caused because we're digging out carbon from deep in the earth, over the last few hundred years since the invention of the steam engine, and we're combusting that and putting all that carbon dioxide into the atmosphere very, very rapidly. So we're actually changing the chemistry of the planet. Now, the carbon cycle is such that trees and plants actually use that as food. So carbon dioxide goes into plant material. So all of our crops, all of our trees bring in billions of tons of carbon dioxide as their carbon source so they can grow. And that's what trees are made of. So all that carbon comes in, but if crops are harvested or trees burn or decay, all that carbon goes right back to the atmosphere. So the process of pyrolysis is we heat off that hydrogen and oxygen, and we capture the vast majority of that carbon in a very, very stable form. And it's stable because of the high temperatures that we use. So the carbon does not decay or degrade or go back to the atmosphere. So if we use, say if there's 1 ton of tree mass, we recover about 750 kilograms of pure carbon. And so, we ask, where did the other 250 kilograms go? Well, that's used up. So the energy is part of the process to create the heat for the process. It generates some of the liquid fuels. So it's not magic. There's the laws of physics are still alive and well. But the vast majority of that carbon that came into that plant material is now captured and actually literally pulled out of the atmosphere and can sit on your table, and it's going to be there, for thousands of years. And we can see that in these ancient soils in the Amazon basin where this carbon is still in those soils. So the technology is now recognized by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They've called it pyrogenic carbon capture, and they consider it probably the best technology there is to remove carbon from the atmosphere via plants. So we let nature do part of the work by bringing in the carbon, but you need the technology to make it stable, keep it out of the atmosphere. Now, if we go ahead and burn that carbon, then we've completely negated the effect of removing the carbon from the atmosphere. So we need to find very strong product opportunities for the carbon, such as activated carbon and plastics in our case. And many other companies are looking at, many other applications, soil additives, stormwater treatment. There's many, many other applications for carbon.
Does Titan qualify for carbon credits in terms of revenue?
Absolutely. It's interesting that the market for activated carbon is around $5 billion. For plastics additives and carbon additives is around $8 billion. The market for carbon credits is projected to grow to $200 billion by 2050. And that is actually larger than the current entire value of the oil and gas industry worldwide right now. So what's the problem with our technology is there's just simply not enough production. This technique is considered one of the best ways to remove carbon from the atmosphere, and our carbon credits are really considered golden because you're physically, tangibly removing carbon from the atmosphere. It's sitting on your table or in a truck in a sack. Whereas, some of the other options look at, maybe changing your farming practices or, planting trees or, things that are less tangible, less physically valid, you can't validate as well. So Carbon credits right now are for our space are trading for around $90 to $180 US per ton. We've seen carbon credits going for up to $700 per ton on the voluntary markets, because people want our credits, because our technology is verifiable and we can validate physical removal from the atmosphere. So for every ton of biochar we produce, we get about 3 carbon credits for the production. Has
it become a large part of your income stream?
If I put a number to it, it could be really, I don't expect these numbers to stay as high as they are. There's truly a seller's market right now. But it's around 15% of our revenue is generated through carbon credits. I actually expect that to increase in 2023 and 2024, and then I think it will level out and get more fluid as far as the marketplace.
What's been the biggest challenge for Titan thus far?
That's the second time I've had that question today. I was in a training session on exporting.
Don't worry, we'll do the biggest opportunity next.
I think it's markets. So what I answered the question earlier was money, markets, and margins. So working capital is always tough when you're trying to build organically from scratch. You don't have big venture capital behind you, so that's tough. You got to make money somehow, one way or another. But I really think it comes down to markets and really understanding, all those mistakes that I made. Pursuing a market that actually didn't exist, that's not a good idea. You want to find markets that are large, that you don't have to, change the world. You don't have to fit a square peg in a round hole, and you want markets that are large, and you want markets that are lucrative, that have good margin. So I think in a nutshell, if it starts with M, like markets, margins, and money, that's been the biggest challenge. There's so many things with anything with equipment and moving parts and so many fluctuations and then growing a company after you get more than say 10, 15 people, it's a different dynamic in a company. There's personality, so it's very much a path that is fascinating as being an entrepreneur, and there's so many challenges. And I just I look forward to looking back on this. When I bow out of Titan and sell my shares, and I think I'll look on it as it's been a wonderful experience, incredible challenges. The cortisol levels of stress must have been through the roof, I'm sure, for many years. But anyway, I'll go back to markets. If you know your markets, everything else will fall into line.
What is the biggest opportunity for Titan going forward?
Well, we want to grow our facility to about a $50 million facility over the next 5 years. So we want to, and basically that's where we feel that bringing in the biomaterials for our facilities will be maxed out. And then we want to replicate that model with our own proprietary technology and around the world. And so I think that's really the biggest opportunity. And then having the technology that, we're not only playing in multi-billion-dollar markets with the products, but with the carbon sequestration, that's really where the growth opportunity is. So if we can just generate as many carbon credits, sell those carbon credits, add value to add revenue to our bottom line, and validate this model, and ultimately our gross margin goals, gross profit margin, that's really where the opportunity. So not only to expand our facility, because we have a great facility with great access to land and resources, But we can replicate. This model can be replicated on any continent. And no matter what the price of oil is, or there's waste everywhere, more than 1 billion tons of waste in North America alone every year is needlessly wasted. So the opportunity to replicate our technology and business model around the world and use carbon credits as a financing mechanism and an opportunity to build those projects.
In terms of percentage of carbon sequestration that's being left on the table right now from collecting biomass and waste products and whatnot, how much is being left out there right now that you guys aren't collecting?
Well, we only have so much processing capacity. So, exactly. But as I said, so 1 billion tons of carbon of waste biomass in North America, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So if you took 1 billion tons, you generate about 300 million tons of carbon, and you generate around 1 billion tons of carbon credits for that. So 1 billion tons times, say $50 a ton. That's a fair bit of cash. So there's an enormous amount being left on the table from the waste biomass perspective, and the technology that provides the best profit opportunity by processing that material into the pure carbon and sequestering it from the atmosphere.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's a great conversation. If you were to give advice to someone out there looking to start a business similar to Titan's in an eco-capitalism space, sequestering carbon, what would you tell them?
Well, don't make as many mistakes as I did, for one. I think just understand your markets and where you want to go with whatever business it is, whether it's recycling, plastics or bottles or wood waste. Certainly understand, the technology is one thing, but you got to understand your value proposition. So what, you can't just be, it's a really good thing to do, so we better do this, but it doesn't really work that way. You have to be able to validate, your value and why it makes sense for you to be doing what you do. So I dive right into your value proposition is the first thing you really have to understand. And then, I also recommend, do it sooner than later, because you'll regret it, not doing it sooner, because it's an amazing ride and an experience that, sometimes, I wouldn't want to wish it on my worst enemies, but for the most part, it's an incredibly rewarding experience. I spent 15 years in the professional services sector. I think I didn't wear at the corner office, I didn't wear a tie on Fridays, so I don't miss it one bit. Getting my hands dirty and seeing things happen, see us, remove carbon from the atmosphere, divert waste from landfill, seeing actual, progress, and it's really rewarding. So my advice is get your value proposition down. Talk to as many people as you can. Get as much advice as you can, and at the end of the day, you just have to decide to go for it or not. And hopefully it'll be more clear once you do a little bit of homework.
Awesome. I think that's a great overview of Titan and what you guys are up to, where you've been, where you're going, and everything else. If someone wants to learn more about Titan, where can they find you guys?
We're on the web, so titan-projects.com, titan-projects.com, all kinds of stuff. I think there's some radio interviews, I think another podcast, there's some stuff there. There's an email address for contact information, so just reach out to us. We're happy to chat. We work a lot with the research community all over the world, and we want to see this technology be disseminated and grow. and happy to be part of this process.
Awesome. Well, we can wrap it up there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Really appreciate the time. It was fun.